guys, Mrs. Pierson here. Welcome back to math. Today's learning target that we're going to be taking a look at is I can multiply mixed numbers. We already know what multiply means. We did that on our previous lesson, multiplying decimals. But now we're going to be multiplying mixed numbers. And we're going to be identifying that as one of our success criteria today. We have a longer list of success criteria than we did last time, so hang in with me. It should be review, but some of it might not be fresh, so we'll do our best to get it fresh. All right, our first thing is I can identify a mixed number. A mixed number is a number that's mixed, meaning it has two different types of numbers. So let's take a look. This number right here is a mixed number. Notice the 4 is a whole number, and the 2/3 is a fraction. So because it has a whole number and a fraction, it gets called a mixed number. So a mixed number, again, has a whole number and a fraction, okay? Our next thing is I can change that mixed number into an improper fraction. We've talked about improper fractions this year, and remember, an improper fraction is a fraction where the numerator is much larger than the denominator. So let's take a look at how to change that mixed number into an improper fraction. So what we will do is we're going to keep the exact same denominator. We don't have to do anything different with the denominator. The denominator will be 3 in this case, so you're halfway done. Now we're going to be climbing the ladder or multiplying, taking steps to create our new numerator. So you're going to multiply your denominator and your whole number and then add your numerator. So 3 times 4 plus 2 would be 14. So we end up with 14/3 is the improper fraction for 4 2/3, the mixed number. Okay, our next piece of success criteria, I can change a whole number into an improper fraction as well. We've done this. So if you have 5 and you need to change that into an improper fraction, you will always use the denominator of 1. Always. Don't ever put any other denominator. To keep the value as 5 whole, we need to put it over 1. And 5 over 1 is still the same value as 5 whole. That's why we're able to do that. All right, our next piece of success criteria is I can multiply fractions. We've already worked on this. This should feel comfortable. We're just going to multiply straight across our numerators and our denominators. So in this case, 2 times 3 would be 6. 5 times 8 would be 40. So 6/40 ends up being our answer for that one. Another piece of success criteria we're going to be looking at, I can change an improper fraction back into a mixed number. So for 13/5, an improper fraction, improper because the numerator is larger than the denominator, how to change that back into a mixed number. You'll notice at the end of our multiplying today, we'll oftentimes end up with an improper fraction for an answer, and so you'll have to go backwards. This really means division, 13 divided by 5. So I asked myself, how many times will 5 go into 13? 5 goes into 13 about 2 whole times. 2 times 5 is 10. So I do have some left over. I keep my denominator exactly the same. I keep 5 as my denominator. And if I'm at 10, but I had 13 as my number, I would have 3 left over. So 2 3/5 would be the mixed number for 13/5 improper fraction. I'll show you how we can go backwards again. Notice our denominator is the same. If we climb the ladder, changing it back into an improper, 2 times 5 plus 3 would be 13. And we're going to practice more of that, so don't worry. All right, last thing that we might end up having to do today is I can reduce fractions to simplest form. We've been practicing this as well. I know for some people they've had a struggle with it. It's just going to keep coming back up, so we'll keep getting more practice. So 8/10, you'll notice they're both even. If both numbers are even, I know that I can half both of them. And if I half 8/10, I'm going to get 4/5. In this case with 4/16, they are both even. I could half both. If I half both, I would end up with 2/8, which are still both even. I would need to then half again to get 1/4. So instead, I could divide out the greatest common factor, which would be 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So I know it's a lot of success criteria today. There's a lot of steps. There's a lot to multiplying mixed numbers, but we're going to go through it together. Don't worry. Don't forget the benefit of you being at home and not being in the classroom is you can hit pause whenever you need to and scroll back and listen to what I had said as many times as you need. Okay? All right, let's come over here to our steps for today's skill. I can multiply mixed numbers. Our steps are right here. The first step is going to be we'll change all mixed numbers or whole numbers into improper fractions. Then we will multiply those numerators and denominators. And finally, we'll simplify if it's needed. So I'm going to ask you to hit pause and copy these steps down into your notebook, and then come back and we'll practice together. So go ahead and hit pause. Okay, welcome back. All right, I'm gonna take you through these steps, and I'm gonna also show you why we have to do these steps so that you don't get confused or choose to do something where I've seen a lot of people do where they end up getting the wrong answer. So let's start off with just basic multiplying fractions, which we've done before. Notice it works because we have a clear path. We can multiply our numerators and our denominators, and there's no whole numbers, there's nothing in the way to stop that. 3 times 1 is 3. And 5 times 4 is 20. Now when we come down here, suddenly when we have mixed numbers, again a mixed number because it has a whole number in it with a fraction, suddenly we have these roadblocks. We can't just multiply our numerators and denominators, we have whole numbers in the way. That's why we need to change them to improper fractions, okay? So the way that we're gonna do that, we're gonna keep that denominator the same. I don't change the denominator at all. I'm gonna climb the ladder. My steps are multiply and then add. So 5 times 2 is 10, plus 3 would be 13. I have another mixed number that I have to change. I'm going to keep my denominator as 4. I'm going to climb my ladder. 4 times 1 plus 1 would be 5. Now I have fractions or improper fractions, so I can multiply straight across. Sometimes you'll end up with larger numbers, and if it's numbers that you mentally are not comfortable doing, remember, it's okay to go to the side and do some side work and use the algorithm to figure that out. So I'm going to go to the side real fast. I end up with 65 as my numerator and 5 times 40 as my denominator, okay? We know this means 65 divided by 20. I have an improper fraction here, so I need to simplify that. 20 goes into 60 3 whole times. And I know I'm going to have some left over, so again, I keep that same denominator. 3 times 20 is 60, but my number is 65. That leaves 5 left over. So I end up with 3 and 5/20ths, but 5/20ths can be reduced to simplest form. I can divide out of 5. So my final answer would actually be 3 and 1/4, okay? Now I want to show you what not to do, because people oftentimes think, oh wait, I don't need to do all that. There's an easier way. So let me show you really quick what not to do. And I'm going to do it in red so you know not to do it. Some people will say, well, why can't I just multiply my whole numbers? Okay, 2 times 1 is 2. And then I'll just multiply my fractions separate. 3/5 times 1/4 would be 3/20. Yay, my answer is 3/20. I'm so much faster. Is 2 and 3/20 the same as 3 and 1/4? Or if you like to have that same denominator, 3 and 5/20? They're not the same. So don't fall into that where you think that you can do them separately. It will not work. I'll tell you the reason it won't work, because when you just multiply 2 times 1 and 3/5 times 1/4, you're missing half of the problem. You didn't give 2 times 1/4 a term, and you didn't give 1 times 3/5 a term. So you really only multiplied half the numbers with the other half. You're missing a big chunk. And that's why you can see our answer doing that wrong way was smaller than what the real answer was. So do not separately multiply your whole numbers and your fractions. That will be incorrect. Okay? All right, we'll do a few more practice problems. Sometimes we're going to come upon doing a whole number, so we'll do a whole number. So 5, all I have to do is put that over 1. And always 1 for your denominator. You will not have another choice. 1 does not change the value. This is equivalent to 5. This is still equivalent to 5. That's very important. I multiply straight across. 5 times 1. 1 times 2. I know this means 5 divided by 2. 2 would go into 5 2 whole times. I do know there's some leftover coming because 2 times 2 is 4. I'd still have 1 left over. So my final answer would be 2 1/2. We'll still do some more. Okay, I have a mixed number. I need to change it to an improper fraction. My denominator stays the same. I'm going to multiply, then add. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5. I have a fraction that's ready to go. 5 times 3, 3 times 5. And I can reduce this. 15 out of 15 is the same as 1 whole. Okay, we'll still do some more. We need to change that mixed number. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13. Again, I end up with a little bit of a bigger number than maybe I want to do mentally. It's okay to go to the side. And I end up with 91. 3 times 8 is 24. Now I have to figure out how many times will 24 go into 91. And I know for some of you, this is where you get a little bit frustrated, and that's okay. Right now, the main thing that I want you worrying about is, can you get here? If you end up getting as far as the improper fraction and that's where you can go, that's great. That's still showing us that you can do I can multiply mixed numbers. The final step is a separate step of simplifying. So if you can change this to an improper and you can multiply and end up with this improper fraction, that's great. I want you to feel good about that. Now this extra step of changing into a mixed number, I'm going to have to think about, how many times will 24 go into 91? Well, we can start taking some guesses. We can think about this being 20 and that being 80. It's okay to go to the side and check. Let's check 3. Okay, 72. Let's check a higher number. That's going to be too high. So I know I'm going to come back to my 3 whole, subtract, and I end up with 19 left over. I keep my denominator the same, and my leftover goes on the top shelf. So my final answer would be 3 and 19/24. Sometimes when you're working with improper fractions, your numbers do get a little bit large and awkward. Don't be surprised, but again, I want you to still feel good if you can at least finish here. Finishing here is a completely separate learning target, so don't worry. All right, I'm going to give you one that I'm going to ask you to practice, and I'll keep the numbers smaller so we're not dealing with something too big. So I'm going to ask you to hit pause and just give that one a try, and then we'll come back and do it together. So go ahead and hit pause. Okay, welcome back. Let's see how you did. We're going to change this to an improper fraction. Now we're going to climb that ladder. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. This is already just a fraction. It's good to go. 5 times 1 is 5. 4 times 2 is 8. And I end up with 5/8. Hopefully you did too. Don't worry too much if the final reducing is giving you a hard time. There's 2 things I want you to be able to do today. Can you change a mixed number into an improper? And then can you multiply fractions? Those 2 steps. Focus on those today, okay? We're going to do one more and then we'll go to our exit step. So we'll give ourselves a good mix. We have a mixed number and we have a whole number. Both need to be changed to an improper fraction. So we're going to keep our denominator the same. 3 times 2 plus 1 would be 7. And we're going to place that over 1. Remember, whole numbers only go over a denominator of 1, always. All right, our fractions are ready to multiply. 7 times 4 is 28. 3 times 1 is 3. So again, if you can get to this step, that's great. That's today's learning target. If you can go a step further and simplify it, great too, okay? So 3 would go into 28 about how many whole times? It would go in 7, 8, 9 whole times. Our denominator stays the same. 9 times 3 is 27, so that would give me 1 left over. So maybe you can take your improper and get back to a mixed. If not, again, don't worry. I want you to get here. All right? Take a deep breath. I know it's a lot of steps. We're going to be practicing Tuesday. We'll be practicing Wednesday. Thursday, we have a quiz. We'll see how you do. And if you're needing some help, make sure that you let me know or let your teacher know. All right? So let's come over here. We're going to try the exit slip. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to do 2 1/4 times 2/3. So you'll hit pause, and when you come back, I'll take you through the answer. So go ahead and hit pause. Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at that answer, see how you did. All right, so 2 1/4, if you change that to an improper fraction, you would have 9/4 times 2/3, that was already in fraction form. Multiplying straight across, 9 times 2, we get 18. 4 times 3, we get 12. So again, if you could get to 18/12 today, that's great. Let that be your main goal. If you're able to take it a step further and change it into a mixed number, you would have gotten 1 6/12. And maybe that extra step of recognizing 6/12 can actually be reduced to simplest form as 1/2. The final answer would be 1 1/2. That would be you're able to do today's learning target and all of the success criteria that's needed for that. So great for you if you can. And if you're not there yet, that's okay. That's why we're going to be practicing. All right. So thanks for joining. Best of luck and see you next time.